All right, so some formulas contain groups of atoms, and that group of atoms works as its own entity, as its own thing. And then we call those polyatomic ions. Polyatomic ions are something that we're going to have to learn. We're going to have to memorize, okay? That's there's not really a good way around that. We're going to have to use them. You're going to have to recognize them. And so I've got a list of them for you on the next slide here that shows you some of the polyatomic ions. What I need you to be able to do is recognize these things. If I say nitrate, I need you to know that that's NO3, and I need you to know that it's got a -1 charge, right? When I say acetate, I need you to know that's CH3COO with a -1 charge. We're going to talk more about these a little bit later in the chapter, but it's a good idea to go ahead and start learning these things. But this is, again, there's not a good way around it. You have to kind of just memorize these. You might want to flashcard them or something like that so you know what's going on, okay? But this is another one of those things that you're going to use all the time. So you're going to learn them by force, right? Because I'm going to use them all the time, and you're going to have to know them. So it's a good idea to go ahead and start learning them. So the way this works, so let's say I had something like calcium and 2 acetates. So how would that work? Well, I'd have a calcium comes first, Ca, and then I have acetate, which we're saying is C2H3O2. But I told you I've got 2 acetates there. So in order to do that, we're going to put parentheses around the whole thing and put a 2 there. That means there are 2 acetates there. So you tell me how many hydrogens are present in this calcium acetate that we have on the board right now. 6. There's 2 times 3 there. So now let me ask you, if I've got 3 moles of calcium acetate, how many moles of carbon are there? 3 times 2 times 2, 12. So we can then convert that to atoms if we wanted to, right? 3 moles of calcium acetate, 2 acetates per calcium acetate, 2 carbons per acetate, 6.022 times 10 to the 23 atoms per mole. So an exam question may look like how many carbon atoms in 3 moles of calcium acetate, written exactly like that. So what you're going to be able to do by the end of this chapter is convert calcium acetate name into this, and then from this we have to figure out how many carbon atoms are present. So what we do is we start over here. We got 3 moles of calcium acetate. Here there are 2 moles of acetate for every 1 mole of calcium acetate. Then there are 2 moles of carbon for every 1 mole of acetate. And then there's 6.022 times 10 to the 23 atoms per 1 mole. Now, where did these conversion factors come from? Where did the 2 moles of acetate for every 1 mole of calcium acetate come from? How did I get that conversion factor? All right, where does this block come from?
Oh, like the parentheses.
This 2 right here. That's right. This 2 right here tells me there's 2 acetates for every whole thing of calcium acetate. Right? That's where this block comes from. Where does this block come from? There's 2 moles of carbon for every mole of acetate. This fact that this C has a 2 on it right here. There's 2 carbons in every one of those things in parentheses, right? There's 2 carbons for every one of those things. And then this is Avogadro's number. This is the conversion from atoms to moles, or moles to atoms. So if we double check over here, moles of calcium acetate will cancel with moles of calcium acetate. Our moles of acetate will cancel with moles of acetate. Our mole here will cancel with mole here. And I'll be left with carbon atoms as my answer. So 3 times 2 times 2 is 12 times 6 times 10 to the 23. What is 12 times 6? 72. So this is going to be something like roughly 7.2 times 10 to the 24 atoms of carbon, right? Let's look at this one. Tell me how many, if we have 1 molecule or formula unit of magnesium nitrate, tell me how many magnesium atoms are here. 1. How many nitrates do I have? 1, 2, right? Now, how many nitrogens do I have? There's 2 nitrates, and each nitrate has a single nitrogen in it, right? How many oxygens do I have? 6. Inside each one of these, there's 3 oxygens. There's 3. There's 3 more, right? So we got 1 magnesium, we got 2 nitrogens, we got 6 oxygens. You guys were able to tell me that. That's good.